I'm Steven Roy Goodman, host of Higher Education Today, a production of the University of the District of Columbia. Welcome back to the education program that connects you to contemporary issues, people, and institutions involved in the world of higher education. Today we'll be talking about early college options. Leighann Kimble is a 16-year-old college student at the Program for the Exceptionally Gifted at Mary Baldwin College. Originally from Baltimore, Leighann is a college sophomore who is triple majoring in anthropology, Spanish, and international relations. She is also a student marshal for the class of 2013. Stephanie Ferguson is director of the Program for the Exceptionally Gifted and the Early College Academy at Mary Baldwin College, which enrolls academically talented women as young as 13. Besides leading the early college programs, Stephanie has also taught courses in adolescent psychology, understanding exceptional individuals, and social psychology. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you so much.
Well, thanks again for coming. Leighann, if I can start with you, it's a little unusual to have a 16-year-old college student, certainly here on our show and certainly in the country. Would you mind saying a word or two about what's it like to be a 16-year-old college student, and how did this come to be?
Well, I actually found out about the Program for the Exceptionally Gifted in my freshman year of high school when I was 14 years old, and I just saw it as a wonderful opportunity to advance into higher education and begin college early.
Did it scare you?
Not at all. I think I was ready for an additional challenge that was not provided in high school.
And were you afraid? Well, let me put it this way. Were you afraid? Was your family afraid? Can you walk us through that? Because there are a lot of people here who are thinking, wow, I have a 16-year-old and my 16-year-old is a junior in high school.
Well, I feel like Mary Baldwin College is a very comfortable school to be in. They are very welcoming, and the college is relatively small, so it wasn't like I was being thrown into a larger campus. So my family was, of course, a little bit afraid of letting me go, but for the most part, they felt that I was ready for this opportunity.
And Stephanie, if we can bring you into this, is this a common thing when a family is going through this? How do families normally think through whether or not this is a healthy and a good thing for a student to go to an early college program?
I think for many families, they're looking for options. Their daughter, for whatever reason, is not being challenged in the educational environment that she's in, whether it's a public school, a private school, or a homeschool situation. And parents are looking for options, looking for answers. And we come across them in various different ways through talent searches, SAT scores, ACT scores, guidance counselors, teachers who may refer the students to us. And I think for the most part, parents want to learn what it's all about. When daughters come to visit, they'll come, they'll spend the night in the dorm, they'll go to a class the next day, and when the parents meet back up with their daughters and they see the light in their eyes again about education, the light that may have been dimming because they haven't been challenged, they're pretty much sold.
But how would you compare that to, let's say, a student who perhaps doesn't have that spark and then somehow finds an AP course or an IB curriculum? How would you compare the Mary Baldwin program to the AP or IB program?
I think AP and IB are wonderful, wonderful options. The difference between those options in a high school setting versus our options in a college setting are basically that you're accelerating your education. Instead of going through high school and coming out with a few college credits, you're skipping the high school experience altogether for 1 year, 2 years, for even sometimes as many as 6 years, and going directly on to college, which allows many more options after you have obtained your degree.
When you just mentioned the experiences of high school, Leighann, do you miss any of those experiences? I assume you have some friends who are getting ready for a prom, or they're going to a high school football game. Does that bother you that you're not experiencing that?
Well, of course, you look at your friends from back home and you say, oh, well, I don't get to go to prom. But the opportunities that have been provided, being able to go to college and being able to graduate early from college, I think are a lot more important than just going to high school prom.
Fair enough, and that's probably why you're in the program, because you care about it more than the proms. but in all seriousness, in terms of missing some of the high school experiences, and maybe I could throw this to both of you, do you feel that you are somehow not getting the same social experiences that you would have gotten in high school?
Oh, not at all. We have a very diverse campus, and all students in the program for the exceptionally gifted are involved in on-campus activities. So I have the same amount of social experiences in college that I would in high school.
And so you don't feel like you're missing anything?
No, not necessarily.
Fair enough. And how do other students in the program feel?
We have age-appropriate activities that we have for our students. Our students are typically between the ages of 13 and 16. We sometimes have 17-year-olds. We sometimes have 12-year-olds. The average age is 14. But not all traditionally aged college activities are appropriate for those age students. So we belong to a boarding school association, which allows us to have social activities, whether it's dances or they'll go to a theme park, King's Dominion or something like that, as a group, so they get to interact with students of their own age, maybe not the same intellectual level, but their own age. So there is coeducational activities available to them.
And in terms of the boarding school, so this would be another option that a viewer watching this today could say, well, you know, my son or daughter is not engaged in learning in such and such high school or such and such junior high school, and we're looking at a junior boarding school, we're looking at another boarding school. How would you, one, what do you think about that? And two, how would you compare the boarding school experience to the experience that Mary Baldwin provides?
Well, boarding school experience is, of course, another educational option out there, but once again, it's a high school option versus accelerating your education and getting your college degree.
And what about boys? I realize Mary Baldwin can't accommodate men or has chosen not to. I think there were, 50-something women's schools left in the United States?
Somewhere around there, yes.
So what does a boy do who is interested in going down this path?
There are other programs at different institutions across the country. We're the only single-sex institution that houses a program. The rest are coeducational. So there are coeducational options, but to my knowledge, there are no single-sex male options.
Okay, and then so are there any other female-only options besides Mary Baldwin?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So if I had a daughter who was gifted, this would be my choice?
Unless you wanted her in a coeducational situation.
And I don't mean this in a flip way, but you know, the name of your program is the Program for the Exceptionally Gifted. I mean, so what happens if someone is just a little gifted, you know, not exceptionally gifted? How do they fit in? How does it work?
When we look at a student for admission, we look at the whole student. So we're not just looking at test scores, we're not just looking at a transcript or an interview or essays. We really look at the whole package. Because students are coming to the program early, it really is more of a family decision perhaps than a typical college decision when you're going at a traditional age. So it's about fit. And if the parents don't feel like it's a fit, or if the student doesn't feel like it's a fit, then we really advise not to go in our direction. It really needs to feel right for all parties involved.
And Leighann, how did you know that it felt right when you were visiting?
Well, I just felt very comfortable on the campus whenever I came to visit, and I just thought about all the options that are available, because Mary Baldwin does provide a liberal arts education in a variety of courses, so I just felt like it would be a wonderful opportunity for me to choose the Program for the Exceptionally Gifted as a path. And
did you stay with a student while you were visiting?
No, I did not. I actually just came with my mother and my grandmother for a day visit. And that was the whole thing? Yes.
Wow, that's quite a big decision based on a one-day visit.
Well, I really felt comfortable. The tour that I was given just really made me feel like this was the option for me.
And how did I realize your mom and your grandmother aren't here, but right. Do you remember how they felt that day?
They just really were excited for me to become a part of the program. So they weren't scared and they weren't unsure. They were ready for me to come to Mary Baldwin.
Fair enough, and you don't have to answer this question if it's too personal. Did they offer you a financial aid package? Right?
Yes, definitely. Mary Baldwin is very helpful in helping students pay for their education.
And do other students feel that way as well?
Yes, our students, even though they are younger than traditionally aged college students, are eligible to receive federal financial aid. And Mary Baldwin also offers students merit scholarships based on A variety of things, but most of the students in the program for the exceptionally gifted receive merit scholarship of some sort and then need-based scholarship on top of that.
And in terms of the merit-based scholarship, where do those dollars come from internally, at Mary Baldwin?
I would really need to research that, but we do have an endowment and we do have donors and scholarships. So
that are specifically designed for just this program.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And then in terms of parents, how do parents stay involved in the program when students are there? So does your mom come to visit regularly, or is there a parent committee, or how does that work?
Well, we actually have a family weekend at Mary Baldwin when parents and other family members are invited to the campus. But because I live close to the area, I live in Baltimore, my family does come down and comes visit me and make sure everything's going well for me. And
we do have a Parents Advisory Council, and we have PEG parents who are in position on that council as well, and they advise the Board of Trustees and the President as well.
And let's say Leighann's mom wanted to watch you play a sport. Could she come just unannounced, or does she have to be announced, or how does that work?
Oh, why not? She can definitely come unannounced. So.
Just like if you were a regular college student who was an older
definitely.
college student, she could just come on the campus and watch you play a sport or play an instrument or whatever.
Definitely. We're not separated from any of the traditional students when it comes to family visiting.
But in terms of the separation with the other students, you're living separately though, right? Or you're living in the same dorms with the older students?
Actually, the first year that you come to the program for the exceptionally gifted, you live in the specific dorm for the program. And then you're given the option your second year, if you are over the age of 16, to move on campus with the traditional students.
And where do you live now?
I currently live in the program, in the dorm for the program for the exceptionally gifted.
And next year?
The next year, what are you planning to do?
I'm planning to move on campus in an upperclassmen dorm.
And your family's okay with that?
Yes, they're perfectly fine with it.
And how does that work with other families? Are other families, do families have a veto on that? Or how does that work?
They're guaranteed housing in the PEG Center for their first 2 years, or when they turn 16, they have the option of moving out. Once they reach junior status and they're 16, they're expected to move out on campus. And the reason for that is most of our students, 80 to 85%, go directly on to graduate school. So having that transition experience living with traditionally aged students is very important as you're preparing to transition to the next part of your education.
And let's say we're taking a class together. Let's say we're all in a political science class together. Is a 16-year-old student in the same class as an 18-year-old student?
Yes.
No different, and they're graded the same way, no difference in grading or anything? In
fact, the professors don't know which students are part of the program for the exceptionally gifted. There's no indicator on their roster that Leighann is a PEG student. So they just know that you're interested in that subject and you've enrolled in that class, and you're expected to do all the work and all the projects and all the exams just like everybody else. Definitely no exceptions. We are college students, and we're expected to do the same amount of coursework as any other traditional student would be expected. Fair enough. Can you do study abroad? Yes, definitely. I'm actually going to Peru for 2.5 weeks this summer, directly after I finish my course, and then I'm going to Spain to study. You had a big smile on your face when you said that. Yes, I'm very excited. I don't think we're exempt from studying abroad at all, and we're actually provided by advisors opportunities to study abroad. So, and even Mary Baldwin College gives you options to study abroad in a course period that we have called May term. So you have plenty of options for that. And your coursework, Leighann's coursework, would that count towards her graduation requirements? Yes. Okay. Now, let's say Leighann did a program through another university, like many college students study abroad through different universities. Could she do that? Sure. She would need to get it approved by our registrar first. It's always good to do it before instead of after. Sure. And as long as he's aware of it and he okays it, it's not a problem. It'll be transferred in. That's good. Okay, I wanted to ask, I'm just amazed that you're 16 years old and you're on the show, so this is terrific. But you're also a triple major. Yes. So I didn't get that wrong, that's right. That's right, and I have a minor in Asian studies. So there's more? Yes. Wow, okay. Maybe you should host this show. All right, so tell me about your majors, if you don't mind. Well, I actually came into Mary Baldwin seeking to major in
biology so that I could go to medical school. And I really fell in love with anthropology first, and when I took my first 2 courses in anthropology. So then I had Spanish classes, and I decided that becoming a Spanish major would work well with anthropology. And then I decided that if I was doing Spanish and Spanish culture, that it would be interesting to go into international relations to learn about more about these cultures and their political situations and things like that.
And that's what you plan to do while you're studying abroad, I assume?
Yes, definitely.
That's fun.
Yes.
Good for you. And what percentage of students do study abroad?
Everyone needs to have a global component to their coursework at Mary Baldwin. As a liberal arts institution, there are several different areas that they need to secure coursework in. And oftentimes students choose to study abroad to meet the global education requirement. It's not required to go abroad, but I would say at least 80 to 85% of our students do at some point. We have an interesting semester terminology. We have a fall semester, a spring semester, and then we have a 3-week May term. It's an intensive study time where you can take 1 course on campus, or many of our students choose to study abroad at that time.
And they do? Wow. Now what about, you mentioned graduate, I think both of you had mentioned graduate school at some point a few seconds ago. And I think one of you said 80 to 90% of students go right on to graduate school?
80
Did I hear that right?
85%, yeah.
What about people who are not going to graduate school? How do they fare in the work world?
Well, that's going to be Leighann, because she has a non-traditional option that she's going to be taking.
Yes. Well, there's actually many options. A lot of people in the program and outside the program, as we all know, they don't go directly on to graduate school. And for me personally, I'm going actually into the Peace Corps before I go to obtain my master's degree.
So let me see, you're a triple major, you have a minor, you're 16 years old, you're in college, and you want to go to the Peace Corps?
Yes.
We're going to send this show directly to the Peace Corps recruiters as soon as we're done. And I think they've got a winner here. That's great. Now are all your classmates like you, or are you the shining light?
I mean, I wouldn't say that. People have other options that they decide, but I'm just very interested in all of my majors, my minor, and in going into the Peace Corps. So that's the path that I'm choosing.
Fair enough. And now, in terms of the work path, how does that work? If you're let's say a 19-year-old college graduate, how do 19-year-old college graduates, not just at Mary Baldwin, but around the country for the early college programs, how do those students fare in the interviewing process?
I think that being an early college graduate is the thing that differentiates these candidates when they're in a huge pool of other college graduates who may be equivalent in all other aspects, but gee, you're 19 and you already have your bachelor's degree. Tell me about that. And that will set you apart in a good way.
Do you have any statistics on that in terms of how, because you've had a number of students go through this program over the last couple of years, more than a couple of years, how have students done in the work world?
Most of our students, I will say, as before, 80 to 85% go directly onto graduate school. The students who leave us and go directly into the work world are a much smaller percentage. Many instead will go on and do internships, whether it's research internships or finding internships within the field, pre-law, things like that. So statistically, I really couldn't say.
And in terms of the graduate schools, do students tend to go to professional schools, the humanities graduate schools? What sorts of graduate schools do you send your graduates to usually?
The most prevalent major when students come in that they're most interested in, like Leighann, is medicine. Somewhere in the medicine field, biology, chemistry, physics, some math majors. So we have students going directly on to medical school. We have other students going directly on to law school. We have studio art is a popular major, so students will go on to reach their MFA.
Fair enough. And what about the alumni network? You know, if I was a traditional student who was 18 years old going to a university, I go to the University of ABC, and one of the things I'm hoping for as a student is that the alumni network is going to be helpful to me in my career. Is that Are you anticipating that, and is that true in Mary Baldwin's case?
Well, I would think so. Like I said before, the program for exceptionally gifted students are not treated any differently from the traditional students. So we will be involved in the same alumni activities as a traditional student would.
And we've had 617 students come through the program for the exceptionally gifted in the 25 years that we've been a program. And our graduates and even students who transfer out of our program after 1 or 2 years and go on to another institution still count themselves as alumni of the program for the exceptionally gifted because it's such a rarefied experience. We have networks on Facebook. We have several different alumni groups that our students can access, and we have an alumni weekend every year, and they're always welcome to come back and visit. So oftentimes I'll have calls from alums and wanting to know, do you have any students right now who are interested in X, Y, or Z? And we try to make connections for them.
And this may be a sacrilegious question, but how does your how does Mary Baldwin compare to other women's colleges in terms of your offerings?
I think that as a small liberal arts institution, we are among the best of that group of institutions simply because of our size. Your average class size is how many, Leighann?
Anywhere from about 15 to 20 students. The largest class I've had is about 30 students.
Yeah. And oftentimes, as you become an upperclassman, your class sizes are much, much smaller. You get seminars with maybe 5 or 10 students in them. So I think that one-on-one interaction with our faculty is something that sets us apart.
And you mentioned transferring.
Mm-hmm.
Do students transfer in and out, just like other institutions? Mm-hmm. How does that work at Mary Baldwin?
Oftentimes we have students who will come to Mary Baldwin, they're very excited, they get their general education requirements out of the way, and they find a passion that we may not have the depth and breadth for them, so they will transfer to another four-year institution to finish up there.
And what about students transferring in from other institutions? How does that work?
In my experience, and I'm in my 4th year in the program, I haven't had that happen with students transferring into PEG. I have had, this past year I had a student come in with her associate's degree. So she came in and was a first-year student at Mary Baldwin, but actually had the credits as a junior.
Right, and how is this, and that sounds a little to me like early admission, mm-hmm. where traditionally, for those people looking at the, seeing the show today, probably don't follow this that closely, but early admission, in the way that I understand it, is you're essentially taking your credits from high school and mm-hmm. applying them to college. Mm-hmm. But what you're saying is a different burden.
Yes, yes, very different.
And if you could maybe flesh out how that's different for our viewers.
Our students, by and large, do not get high school diplomas. They leave their home school and come directly to us and forego the high school diploma. They can opt to get a GED if they choose to, but they'll graduate at 16, 17 with a bachelor's degree and not a high school diploma. Whereas early admission, oftentimes you're a junior, you've taken most of your credits, maybe have 1 or 2 classes shy to graduate, whatever the state requirements are, and you'll come directly onto college and you'll have 1 or 2 courses that'll double count so that you can get your high school diploma.
And how do other colleges, I always think about colleges, how do other countries do this? So what happens if there's, I don't think we're going to find another Leighann somewhere, so we're delighted you're here, but let's assume there was someone like Leighann in Peru mm-hmm. or in Spain. What would that student do in Peru or Spain?
It really depends on what their university system is like. Obviously, every country has a different educational system, and to some, advancing and going to college radically early is not as much of an anomaly as it is here in the United States. But we do have foreign students that seek us out. I have 2 international students right now.
And what countries are they from?
One is originally from India and resides in Singapore at the moment, and the other one is from Korea, but most recently from Bolivia.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we only have a few seconds left. Leighann, why don't I give you the last question, if I may. If you had to give advice to students and moms and dads who are watching this, and you know, maybe they're still a little scared, and you can't blame them for being a little nervous about this. And maybe they're seeing you and they're saying, wow, my daughter is gifted, but not, you know, quite like Leighann. What advice would you give to them in terms of going through this process and feeling that it was okay?
I would just say to seek out your options. If you feel as though you're ready for a challenge, make sure that you find the program or the institution that would be perfect for your interests, and not to feel as though you're scared to do anything, to feel as though you're ready whenever you choose a program.
But how do you know when you are ready?
That's something that you have to decide on your own. You have to decide if you're ready for an additional challenge, if you feel as though you're committed and you have the drive to move on to a higher education program. And I'm pretty sure people are familiar with whether or not they can take on the challenge. And
you felt that you were ready and you took it?
Yes.
Fair enough. And on that note, let me thank you both for coming in today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. If you would like additional information about the program for the exceptionally gifted at Mary Baldwin College, please visit the Mary Baldwin website at mbc.edu/early_college/PEG. Thank you for watching. We will continue to bring you quality discussions about important matters in today's college and university world. Please join me again for another edition of Higher Education Today. I'm Steven Roy Goodman, and you've been watching Higher Education Today.